All right. Hi. Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to the demo class of Tan Choi. And the topic is using Think-Alouds to develop reading comprehension. We are now live in Facebook as well as in our YouTube channel. All right. So I'll bring in Anne in a few seconds. So be ready with your pen and paper so you can take down notes.
Thanks, Jeff. Hi, and good afternoon, everyone. I'll just adjust my screen a little, yan. Good afternoon. So today, I'll be sharing with you a very simple strategy that you can use to help your students develop their reading skills. As we all know, our students' reading ability has a profound effect on their entire lives. And their ability to read, of course, is parang a gateway for them to be successful in other subjects as well. So it's really important, no? And one of our primary duties as teachers and parents is to help our children develop these skills so that they will be lifelong readers and learners. And the strategy that we will be talking about today is using Think-Alouds to develop reading comprehension. So I'll be sharing my screen so that you can see the slides that I prepared for you today. All right. So using Think-Alouds to develop reading comprehension. Before we dive into the nitty-gritty, no, I want you to think about the word Think-Alouds. I'm sure you're familiar with the phrase, and I'm sure some, if not most of us, are doing it from time to time, right? So how exactly do Think-Alouds help our students become better readers? Well, before we discuss what Think-Alouds are, I think it's important for us to discuss what reading actually is. So I'm sharing with you one of the definitions of reading from literacyworldwide.org, and I'll read it aloud. Reading is the process of simultaneously extracting and constructing meaning through interaction and involvement with written language. So I'd like to take a few seconds for you to read this definition and to pick out some key words. What do you think are the most important words in this definition that can help us define what reading actually is? So for me, I picked out four keywords from that definition. So you can see the definition here. Again, reading is the process of simultaneously extracting and constructing meaning through interaction and involvement with the written language. And I chose four words, which are process, meaning, extract, and construct. So if we say something is a process, that means it's something that happens slowly. There are steps that we must take in order for it to happen, so it doesn't happen automatically. And we say reading is a process because readers actually go through something or do some things before, during, and after reading. We'll talk more about that later. Next is meaning. I think meaning is central to reading. Without meaning, there is no reading. So, students and children who just read the words out loud without understanding what they are sounding out or what they are uttering, they're not really reading. So, for me, comprehension is the core of reading. And then the words extract and construct. When I hear the word extract, something that immediately comes to mind is a juice extractor, a machine that pulls out juice from fruits and vegetables. Because extract means to get something, no? So when we're reading, we're extracting something or we're getting something from the text, like how you would squeeze out juice from an orange. And then, of course, the word construct. So when we say we construct something, that means we are building something. And the image that comes to mind are my kids building cities, building houses out of their Lego bricks. No? So they are making play spaces and they're building something. So when we read, we are also building something. And that something is that image or that connection that we make when we connect what we know to what the text is telling us. So there, reading is the process of simultaneously extracting and constructing meaning through interaction and involvement with written language. So would you agree with Literacy Worldwide's definition of reading. It's saying that it's a process that readers go through to get meaning and to make meaning from written or printed language. The problem is, it's a process that actually happens in the mind of the reader. When we read, our students do not actually see how we are making connections between what we know and what the book is telling us. When our students read out loud to us, we do not see whether or not they are understanding what they read. We only know that they can sound out the words or decode the words that we are asking them to read. But as teachers, and because we know that reading is more than sounding out, the question now is, how can I make sure that my students are reading with full understanding? To put it another way, you can also ask, how can I show my students how I come to understand what I read? So it's up to you, no, as a teacher to show your students now the model or the process of reading from when you're actually doing it. And this is where Think-Alouds can come in, because Think-Alouds can help your students see the invisible processes that happen when you read. It's like they are able to take a sneak peek into your brain when you do Think-Alouds with them. So like this picture, no, they can sort of see how the gears in your brain are moving when you're doing Think-Alouds with them as you read. Now, this all sounds quite technical. So to make it simple, I can actually show you how a Think Aloud helps, no? I will be reading a passage to you and I will be reading it twice. First, I will read it straight. So the first reading is just a straight reading of the passage. And then during the second reading, we'll do a think aloud. That means we'll be pausing from time to time to demonstrate how a teacher can think aloud while reading. I hope the simple demo can show you how comprehension is enhanced via Think-Alouds. Are you ready to listen and read with me? So I will be reading the first chapter of the book Wonder by R.J. Palacio. You can see the cover of the book. It's a bright blue book with a picture of a boy. And there. And the first chapter's title is Ordinary. You can read with me. I hope you can see the words that are on the screen. So we'll be reading it together. Ordinary. I know I'm not an ordinary 10-year-old kid. I mean, sure, I do ordinary things. I eat ice cream, I ride my bike, I play ball, I have an Xbox. Stuff like that makes me ordinary, I guess. And I feel ordinary inside. But I know ordinary kids don't make other ordinary kids run away screaming in playgrounds. I know ordinary kids don't get stared at wherever they go. If I found a magic lamp and I could have one wish, I would wish that I had a normal face that no one ever noticed at all. I would wish that I could walk down the street without people seeing me and then doing that look away thing. Here's what I think. The only reason I'm not ordinary is that no one else sees me that way. But I'm kind of used to how I look by now. I know how to pretend I don't see the faces people make. We've all gotten pretty good at that sort of thing. Me, mom and dad, Via. Actually, I take that back. Via's not so good at it. She can get really annoyed when people do something rude. Like for instance, one time in the playground, some older kids made some noises. I don't even know what the noises were exactly because I didn't hear them myself. But Via heard and she just started yelling at the kids. That's the way she is. I'm not that way. Via doesn't see me as ordinary. She says she does, but if I were ordinary, she wouldn't feel like she needs to protect me as much. And mom and dad don't see me as ordinary either. They see me as extraordinary. I think the only person in the world who realizes how ordinary I am is me. My name is August, by the way. I won't describe what I look like. Whatever you're thinking, it's probably worse. So there, that's the first chapter of the book, Wonder. And this time, we're going to do a second reading of the same chapter, but we'll be doing a think aloud, okay? And because you can't see me, because you can only see the words on the screen, I've actually put in some signals I've put in some thought bubbles to show you that I'm doing a think aloud. And in class, your students can actually see this when you actually put the book down when you're doing a think aloud. So when you're doing something that's not written, or when you're saying something that's not written in the book, your students will know. All right. So here we go. Our second reading of the same chapter. All right, class. Today we're going to be reading the first chapter from the book Wonder. Normally, before reading a book, I really like to read a summary of what the book is about. So I'm going to read to you the summary or the blurb from the first page of the book, Wonder. August Pullman was born with a facial difference that prevented him from going to a mainstream school until now. He's about to enter fifth grade at Beecher Prep. And if you've ever been the new kid, then you know how hard that can be. The thing is, Augie's just an ordinary kid with an extraordinary face. But can he convince his new classmates that he's just like them, despite appearances? So that's the summary of the book Wonder, as written in the first page of is written in the first page of the book. So just by reading that blurb, I know that the book will be telling me about Augie's experience as the new kid in school. And from my personal experience, I know how nerve-wracking it is to be the new kid. And for Augie, who is described to be born with a facial difference, I think it would be doubly hard. I wonder what kind of facial difference he has. Does he have only one eye, like the illustration in the book cover? Well, I want to go on reading the first chapter. Maybe I'll find out there. The title of the first chapter is Ordinary. I wonder if being ordinary is a good thing or a bad thing for Augie. For me, to be considered ordinary is not necessarily a good thing. It means you're just like everyone else and nothing makes you special. So let's read the first paragraph. I know I'm not an ordinary 10-year-old kid. I mean, sure, I do ordinary things. I eat ice cream, I ride my bike, I play ball, I have an Xbox. Stuff like that makes me ordinary, I guess. And I feel ordinary inside. But I know ordinary kids don't make other ordinary kids run away screaming in playgrounds. I know ordinary kids don't get stared at wherever they go. I wonder what kind of face he has that would make someone scream and run away. If I found a magic lamp and I could have one wish, I would wish that I had a normal face that no one ever noticed at all. I would wish that I could walk down the street without people seeing me and then doing that look away thing. Oh, I know that look away thing he is referring to. I do that too when I'm looking at someone and he accidentally sees me looking at him. So what I do is I look away immediately and pretend that I'm not looking in that direction. So going back, here's what I think. The only reason I'm not ordinary is that no one else sees me that way. But I'm kind of used to how I look by now. I know how to pretend I don't see the faces people make. We've all gotten pretty good at that sort of thing. Me, mom and dad, Via. Actually, I take that back. Via's not so good at it. She can get really annoyed when people do something rude. Like, for instance, one time in the playground, some older kids made some noises. I don't even know what the noises were exactly because I didn't hear them myself. But Via heard and she just started yelling at the kids. That's the way she is. I'm not that way. So, Via is Augie's protective older sister. I wonder if Via ever gets tired of protecting Augie. You know, do you actually get used to people doing mean things? Is it good to even be used to get to people doing mean things to you? I'm sure even if Augie says that he's used to it by now, I'm sure it still hurts a little bit every time. Via doesn't see me as ordinary. She says she does. But if I were ordinary, she wouldn't feel like she needs to protect me as much. And mom and dad don't see me as ordinary either. They see me as extraordinary. I think the only person in the world who realizes how ordinary I am is me. My name is August, by the way. I won't describe what I look like. Whatever you're thinking, it's probably worse. So that's the end of the first chapter. It gives us a glimpse into Augie's life. He says he's an ordinary boy on the inside, but he has an extraordinary face that elicits reactions from different people. He gets stared at, little kids get scared of him, and others simply act rudely, maybe even call him names behind his back. I can only imagine how hard it is to be him, or even to be part of his family because of that need to protect Augie from all of this. I'm really excited to read more from this book. All right. So that's the end of our reading. Before we continue, I would really love to hear what you think. Did you notice the difference between the first reading and the second reading? In the first reading, we just dove right into the text and read it through until the end. In the second reading, we gave a bit of the background of the story. So I read to you the blurb, I read to you the context of the story before actually beginning the chapter, and then paused from time to time to talk about what we have read. And when we got to the end of the chapter, we summarized it a little bit, right? So I hope that very short demo, it's just one, two, three, four, 5 paragraphs or so. It can. I hope that it showed you how think-alouds can deepen and enrich a reader's understanding of a passage. I understand that we have more time to talk on another day, so I just want to share my plan of talk if we have a longer session. So first, we will talk about what reading is as a process. And I already shared to you a little bit about the definition of reading. I'll be sharing it again, but I will be talking about it more in depth, as well as we will also be talking about some other factors that help readers understand what they read better, because there are certain situations and certain factors that make reading easier or more comprehensible, I guess. More importantly, or when we go to the second part, we will be discussing about how good readers read and compare them to how poor readers read. Research tells us that good readers actually do many things before, during, and after reading. So just like what we did, no, in our first reading, which is maybe somehow what a poor reader would do, he would just dive right into the text without doing anything before, during, and after reading. But a good reader actually sets goals before reading. So meron siyang context. So he prepares himself before reading by setting goals, by figuring out, okay, what do I want to find out when I read this text? And then during reading, they do a lot of things. For example, they clarify what may be unclear, or in the demo kanina, we showed how a good reader makes connections between what they read to their actual experiences. And then after reading, good readers summarize and reflect on what they read. So these are just some of the things that we will be talking about, because there are so many things actually that good readers do before, during, and after reading. And it's important for us to understand what good readers do, because knowing how they do it, we can align our strategies to help our students become better readers. So now that we know, now that we are armed with the knowledge of these reading strategies before, during, and after reading, we are in a better position as teachers and parents to model these processes or these thinking strategies to our students or our children, so that they can internalize these processes and also use them independently when they are reading. So that is actually how Think-Alouds can help our students. So by modeling, by showing them, this is what we do when we are reading, this is what we think about, this is how we make connections, that's how we can help our students. And towards the end of the talk, we will be talking about some tips on how we can incorporate Think-Alouds in class. So it's not something that, even though it looks spontaneous, no, even though it looks like you're just talking while you're reading, there actually has to be a bit of planning that you do before doing a Think-Aloud in front of your class or in front of your kids. So we will be talking about some tips on incorporating Think-Alouds when we read aloud. So there, that's the end of my demo. I hope that it gives you a glimpse of what Think-Alouds are and makes you interested to hear more. If you have any questions or comments, you can just type your questions or comments or suggestions in the chat box that Jeff will prepare or that Jeff has for us. And then maybe I can read your questions and comments, and I hope I will be able to address them when we have a longer session. All right. Um,
All right. Thank you, Anne. Thank you for that demo. For those interested in joining Anne's class, she will have one this coming June 20. Just visit our website uh, to check the details. We will be posting this demo later on as well. Um, okay. Maybe Anne can say some words before we end the session. And do you have any last words or any tips before we end the session?
Jeff, is it okay if we talk about interaction and involvement?
Oh, sure. Go ahead. Do you want me
I
to?
saw, I saw Precious chose three keywords from the definition that I showed. No, she showed
Yeah.
meaning, interaction, and involvement. And I think you chose really good keywords. Except we were only able to talk about one out of the three that you chose. And when we do our longer session, we'll talk about interaction because it's really very important. No, there has to be an interaction between the reader and the text. It helps with reading also. So we'll talk more about that and involvement when we have a longer time and when we are able to expound more on the definition of reading. Thank you, Precious. Thank you for sharing with us your thoughts.
So, and question during the June 20 session, they will be able to ask you questions, right? I mean, there will be more time for Q&A.
I hope so. Yes.
Yeah. Okay. Okay. So there. Any more tips before we end the session?
I hope the simple demo can just, it's very it seems very simple, right? So I hope you can try it out before we have an
Yeah.
actual longer session, so that through your experience you'll be able to reflect.
Uh,
Is this the way it is? This is what happened to me when I did the think aloud. So is this how it really is? And then we can address those questions when we do a longer session. So yun, inviting you guys to try out the strategy before June 20.
yeah. All right. Sige. And thank you so much for your time. And to those who viewed this demo class, thank you also.
Salamat
This
din.
will, yes, welcome and thank you. And also, this video will be on public later. All right. And I'll be sharing it also on our Facebook page. Thank you very much. And thank you very much. Bye.
Bye.
All right. So that was Ann Tan Choi for her demo class. Thank you very much. Hope to see you all on June 20.